The new Fable game is pretty much as dead as it gets. From the very first trailer that we saw, we instantaneously were capable of figuring out something very obvious. There's not a lot of game there, but there is a lot of very annoying on the face political messaging that kind of does a very good job disrespecting all of the gamers, which was typical for that age because a huge chunk of Fable's planning core development was done at, well, what can now only be described pretty much the darkest age of gaming politics that we have had in the last 5 years, and it was opened at its peak. And well, furthermore, this is a Microsoft title. This is an Xbox game. And as we have already seen, everything from that era of Xbox is pretty much just getting nonstop shelved because it's all going to be a disaster. And I mean, everyone, everyone knows it. So, Fable is not going to succeed. It's going to be lackluster at best, completely horrible at worst, most likely. We have seen gameplay footages, trailers, everything. It's a game completely not fitted to be made in this time, honestly. And with the scope of what it's supposed to be doing with its quirky British humor and, well, everything else that it surrounds, made by the people that tried to make this, it's never happening. I mean, have you heard of Doctor Who with what happened to that franchise in the last two, you know, seasons? Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen with Fable, most likely.
It's been a long wait for Fable. 14 years since the last mainline game. 7 years since Playground Games first took the wheel, and now people are getting nervous. The release window slipped. It missed Xbox's 2025 showcase entirely, and Reddit is full of theories, breakdowns, and even people tracking how many £240 whiskey rounds the devs are buying in Leamington Spa. So is the development taking too long? Is Fable in trouble? Or is this exactly
Yes. I mean, again, very, very obviously.
what rebuilding one of gaming's quirkiest fantasy RPGs was always going to look like? Let's talk about what's really happening with Fable's development and why you might not need to panic just yet. To really understand where all the nerves are coming from in 2025, we've got to go back to where this all started.
At the trailer, hopefully.
Lionhead shut its doors in 2016. Fable Legends was cancelled midway through production, a live service multiplayer experiment that, in hindsight, never really reflected what Fable was all about in the first place. And after that, nothing. Albion was mothballed. Until 2018, when Eurogamer reported that Microsoft had quietly handed Fable to Playground Games, a studio with zero RPGs on their CV, but an open world reputation thanks to Forza Horizon. But
Yeah, and that alone, obviously, is kind of hilarious. So, a studio should be allowed to try other things. I'm not really a fan of the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice situation where people are like, oh, companies should do new innovative things, but at the same time, you're known for making Gotham games. You should only make Gotham games. I think that's not really a productive mindset to honestly have. So, I don't want to be saying that the racing car developers are not going to probably 100% succeed in making a quirky, stupid British type of, slogfest that looks like a pub crawl. But they probably are. I mean, there's not a lot of overlap between racing and, well, whatever the hell Fable is supposed to be in the first place. So, that is very doubtful. I'm not gonna lie, okay? This is one of those, yes, this is okay to doubt situations, I think.
here is where things have been missed or misinterpreted because Playground Games were not handed any half-built Fable project. They inherited nothing. No assets, no old code, no pipeline, no role-playing game division. They started purely from zero. This was a clean slate.
This was the trailer, by the way. If you don't know, this is Fable. There you go. This is like a real life guy, by the way, and he represents everything we don't want in games. If you did not already catch on.
A brand new studio division for Playground Games, brand new systems, a brand new Fable altogether, and that's exactly why, right from day one, this was never going to be a quick one. And even with experience, Fable was always going to be uniquely difficult in its own right. This isn't grimdark fantasy, it's fairy tale satire colliding with moral consequence. You can go from noble hero.
If there's one thing that these people would never be able to do, and British in general are incapable of just even understanding morals as a whole species at this point, I would honestly say. Sorry, British viewers, it is what it is. Anyway, yeah, in the modern day, all of these companies that do stuff like this can't do moral choices. They just flat out can't. Everything they do is kind of like really bad. Case in point, Dragon Age the Veil God. Case in point, literally every other disaster that we have had in the last 10 years. And, well, all of the characters, at best, are always kind of morally good-ish, while still lacking actually being good people. That's the best they can do. And well, since Fable is supposed to be about good and evil, yeah, that's not probably happening.
To real estate tyrant within 15 minutes. It's British absurdity wrapped in sincerity, and getting that right isn't just about good writing or map design, it's layered morality systems, dynamic economies, branching dialogue to some extent, property management and relationship mechanics, all while keeping the whole thing funny without breaking the world around it. That balancing act is what makes Fable, and few RPGs ever come close to even touching that. This is why Playground didn't just need time to scale up their technology, they needed time to scale up their entire creative culture. So yes, it has been a long time indeed. Internal development kicked off around 2018. It was officially then announced in
7 years is typically enough for a modern day game to release. And the fact that it's not here means that it's bad. Just from this development cycle alone, it's bad. I mean, okay, maybe they take 10 years in the oven like Dragon Age Railgun come out in their shit and they say, well, we needed 10 more years! Because we weren't allowed to cook long enough. That's, by the way, seriously what the Dragon Age developers said and what other people said. The Dragon Age Railgun would have been good if it just had enough time in development. Had 10 goddamn years.
2020. At one point, 2025 looked like the ideal target for release. That has now currently slipped into 2026. And then, just to stoke more fan anxiety, Fable skipped Xbox's 2025 showcase entirely. By the time
You know what? That's actually a good thing because I would just have to laugh about more things here, okay? Listen, Clockwork Revolution. I think this is going to be the biggest disaster. This is not just BioShock Infinite at home. This is Tibu BioShock Infinite being currently delivered by a drunk Amazon worker that's getting mobbed in the streets of New York type of shit. Fallout 76 is a joke. I don't know what Keeper is. I don't remember. The good ones here, the only actually good ones here are probably Dawnwalker. That's really big hype. Tony Hawk Pro Skater could be maybe good. And Sea of Thieves for the people who play Sea of Thieves. Everything else on this list, I'm sorry, but it's just looking bad. Maybe High on Life is going to be interesting for a lot of people, but I mean, everything else here is just it's it's already a shit show.
by the time this game finally lands, we're already staring down an 8-year, maybe more, dev cycle. And on the surface, that sounds absolutely terrifying. But if we actually just zoom out and compare that to the landscape of concurrent RPGs, it's actually weirdly normal. Horizon
It's actually weirdly worse.
Horizon Zero Dawn took nearly 7 years when Guerrilla pivoted from FPSs to RPGs. God of War's reboot lived in that 6 to 8 year window, and
And you know what all of these games have in common? They're going down the fucking drain. That's what they have in common. Kratos is a cuck joke. Okay? He is no longer even a man. Okay? He's now just a cuck father figure. Okay? From quick time events of abandoning your child to being a literal non-stop cuck. Cyberpunk is kind of okay. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn. That's again just going down the drain because they decided, you know what? Aloy was too feminine. Let's make her into a man and see what happens. Well, you found out what happens, didn't you?
even Cyberpunk, for all of its chaos, had a similar reboot timeframe once it pivoted from its original design.
What do you mean reboot timeline? Let me actually check this out. This is copium at like a maximum stage, okay? I'm sorry, friendo, but if this is your examples of things being good, then shit. Cyberpunk 2077 dev time. Cyberpunk did not take 8 years to develop, okay? Well, and then the AI somebody is saying it took roughly 8 years to develop. From 2012 to its release in 2020. Okay, so probably roughly like 8 years or something like that. Let's check the Reddit post that says 8 years. I have no idea. This looks like fucking more cope, honestly, at this point. So, 8 years, and then how many years did it take to fix itself? I mean, Cyberpunk, when it released, it was a disaster. PlayStation had to issue refunds. That's how much of a disaster this is. So, baseline Cyberpunk is not what you want to show us when you say, oh, this is not a red flag. Because that's a red flag.
The difference is, those studios were already sitting on RPG pipelines. So this isn't a case of a lost studio delaying forever, it's a team learning how to build an RPG while carrying one of Xbox's biggest franchises on their back. And we don't even have to speculate on this part because we have an ex-developer come out and say it themselves. Juan Fernandez, who worked on Fable before leaving Playground, spoke pretty bluntly about exactly why this reboot has moved so slowly. In his words, Playground were incredibly smart, hugely ambitious, but simply didn't have people who had made RPGs before. And that is kind of...
That sounds like blatant lies. That sounds like very fucking blatant lies. That sounds beyond that.
The entire story
The
right
cope
there.
is big.
Playground didn't know how to make RPG systems. That's your third-person combat, dialogue trees, inventory management systems, skill trees, morality systems. None of it existed when they started. Which means even though development technically began in 2018, a huge chunk of the early years was spent building the studio before they could even start building Fable. And then, as Playground figured out their pipeline, they started...
Okay, let me explain this with statistics. Do you know how many games are in a situation where the devs have never made anything and then the game gets delayed and it's a triple A development and it turns out good? Almost done! There you have it.
filling in the gaps. In 2022, Amy Spudler...
Sure, you can probably name an example, or maybe even 5. But that's literally nothing in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things, that's like 0.01%.
joined as a senior producer, one of the few Lionhead veterans actively working on this reboot. A bit of original Fable DNA back in the room. Narrative-wise, Anna McGill joined as lead writer with experience on Control, Dishonored, and Division 2. She led story development.
Division 2 was ass, and which Dishonored that I'll be talking about, because Dishonored 1, people like that. Dishonored 2, people want to forget that. There's a huge difference which Dishonored we're talking about here.
For over 3 years before stepping down in 2023 after the big gameplay reveal, but left on good terms, stating that Playground has assembled a heroically talented team. That narrative handover
Bruh, you can't say they assembled and heroically talented. You can't even say that they have anyone above a goddamn mouth breather working in this game, considering it's taking forever literally to release. What do you mean? This is cope on a fundament. This is primordial cope, okay? When twisting nethers were twisting and primordial soup was souping, the fucking copium was already building cities. What is this?
continued with Andrew Walsh, previously senior writer on Horizon Forbidden West, associate narrative director on Horizon Call of the Mountain, and former writer on Fable Legends. So again, a good mix of modern actual RPG experience and actual history with Fable. And then
yeah, too bad most games like this fail with people like this. Jesus.
in 2024, just last year, Playground made arguably their smartest move, bringing in Eidos Montreal to actively support development. That's devs who have made Deus Ex, Guardians of the Galaxy, which was
The last Deus Ex game kinda, made the company almost die. And the first real 3D Deus Ex, that game, that was kind of, it wasn't a bad game, but it was a severe decline from the quality that people previously expected, though.
actually surprisingly really good, and Tomb Raider. These are people who
Guardians of the Galaxy, the game fucking failed like it was literally designed to combust.
understand RPG systems, choices, dialogue, player agency, all.
Yeah, you see this game right here? This game is not really actually this is not a game that stands the scrutiny when it comes to player choices, honestly.
The stuff that lives under Fable's weird humour. Their arrival suggests that this was all about bolstering the systems underneath it all. Which brings us now to where a lot of fan anxiety stirs. The current 2025 job listings. Because even after all of this, Playground Games are still hiring, and these aren't just polished roles, some of these are actually leadership positions.
How is that good? You literally have leadership abandoning ship before it's good? You know which game did that? Avowed. Oh. Yeah. Avowed did that. That is success? No. Oh my god, the copium is real.
Amongst the most eye-catching listings, you've got an associate production director, lead gameplay designer, lead gameplay animator. Not just small hires.
Wait. So we're fucking 7 years into development, and we're looking for new lead gameplay designers? Bro, you understand a lead gameplay designer is someone who's supposed to have a fucking singular vision? Lead gameplay animator. What do you goddamn mean? This is horrible. All of this is horrible. All of this sounds like it's just completely breaking apart at the seams. Jesus. Wow.
Not just small hires. The kind of people you generally want to lock in during your pre-production stages. Not this far along. Alongside that, there's still plenty of...
Well, yeah. Because that's bad locking them in now.
Senior hirings happening.
Wait, what?
In systems, VFX, cinematics, and engineering. None of which screams we're wrapping up in the next year. Now, to be clear...
Well, yeah, but again, that's really bad. You're telling me this game is going to be 8 years into production and we don't even have lead roles? You know what? Which other game had a similar experience? Mind's Eye! None of this is good. I can't actually even think of a single game that actually succeeded that had similar things happen.
AAA projects often do higher late. Polish phases scale differently. Some of this could be filling in gaps as they hit final production milestones. But yes, recruiting leads in 2025 does raise fair questions about how much iteration's actually happening behind the scenes, speaking to just how difficult this project has been structurally. So if you are sitting there wondering if it is slightly alarming that, Fable is hiring huge roles in 2025, it's certainly not nothing. But it's not necessarily disaster either. It is just a reflection of how complicated this reboot has been to land. Especially
That that by itself is not even close to being a good thing. Anyway, that was Jackdaw, 10 out of 10. Wow, I mean, Fable is definitely a point of copium for a lot of people. Jesus. Anyway, bye.